we had Turkey Al Faisal, the former intelligence, the head of intelligence in Saudi Arabia. He said that the biggest threat to the region, to the stability of the region, is Israel, is not Iran. Is that going to be the case for their strategy, for their policy, or it's a new? Because I have never heard this from Saudi Arabia before. And what is going on in the mind of the people or the leadership in Saudi Arabia?
Turki al-Faisal was the father of the Wahhabi death squad's plans. He was responsible
And
for
that's the
building.
importance, Laith.
Yes, so he was responsible for building Al Qaeda, Islamic State in Iraq, the ISIS, HTS. He's the main operator of these Wahhabi death squads around the world, from Al Shabaab in Somalia to Boko Haram in Nigeria. Him and the Americans and Israelis, but he's the kind of the strongest link within this intelligence, because of how much the Wahhabi preachers were all under his control, that preached in these mosques, that recruited the Wahhabi death squads. Now, I will take his words in the Doha summit with a grain of salt. I think because things are so clear now to most Arabs and Muslims, that these Wahhabi death squads will never fight Israel, that also Iran and the Shia of the Arabic world were the defenders of the Holy Mosque in Al-Aqsa Holy Mosque, and the Palestinians in Gaza against genocide. This has really, really weakened the propaganda capabilities of the Wahhabi cult to recruit against resistance in the Arabic and Muslim world. So there has to be, at least for Turki al-Faisal and these leaderships in the Wahhabi, plethora of movements, there have to be at least a change in the propaganda in order not to completely lose the battle. So we saw, for instance, yesterday or the day before, yeah, it was yesterday. Yeah, like the 2 days ago, the commemoration of the fall of Damascus to HTS. We saw this new Syrian army parading in Damascus and marching to chants about the liberation of Palestine. Okay, and the Zionists supposedly complained publicly about it. Now, in my mind, of course, these HTS on that same day were driving through villages in the south of Syria, passing Israeli occupation forces and just saluting them. Okay, so the Zionists complain about the marching band and chanting for Palestine of HTS, which probably the Zionists asked HTS to do, to make them look like they're somehow pro-Palestinian, and then the Israelis complain about it. So I put that in the same, understanding. When I talk about Turki al-Faisal saying those words, it is just a change of propaganda tactic, but behind the scene, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Qataris, the Kuwaitis, the Bahrainis, and their intelligence services are all working to still recruit Wahhabi death squads to try to attack Iran from Baluchistan, from Afghanistan, from Azerbaijan. All of those are still continuing. So I don't think anybody should be fooled by the change in tactic of propaganda.
Yeah. Laith, you've been to Italy, and we know that Europe in Doha, one of the representatives in that panel that you mentioned, Jawad Zarif, was part of that panel. The lady, if I'm not mistaken, she was Italian, and she said the first priority of Europe is Ukraine, and she didn't even mention the case of the Middle East. And what is going on in Europe, in your opinion, and how do you see some sort of division between the people and the leadership in Europe? And how drastic is the division between the two if that's the case?
Definitely, the population in Europe is in total odds with the elite and the governments. I think surveys that have been conducted in Europe showed that even the most propagandized population in Germany, see the Zionist entity as an enemy. I think almost 2/3 of the population in Germany are against the Zionist colony and what it's doing. This is huge, and that's the same for most of Europe. Okay, now the problem that we're facing as people from this region is that the populations in Europe, the social services that they have, healthcare, schooling, transportation, whatever it is actually all financed by the looting of resources from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So, for instance, when I was in Italy, and here is probably the most active anti-war, anti-imperialist movements in Europe, with strikes every couple of days. I saw demonstrations in Genoa, in Milan, in Rome, with hundreds of thousands of people there, and the unions out on strike on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people on the 27th of November. That didn't relate to it or translate to any radical action. So these unions want an end of the genocide in Gaza, but they have no problem with the looted gas and oil of Libya that is keeping the heat on in Italy. There's a contradiction there. These movements, these labor unions, are calling for stopping the selling of weapons from Italy to the Zionist colony. Italy, by the way, is the number 3 salesperson of weapons to the Zionists after the United States and the UK. So, and Germany. So, whereas these unions, with their union members that are working in these factories producing the weapons, they're not calling on their union members to stop work. Those factories didn't go on strike that day. Every other union and every branch of those unions, because those workers in these weapons factories belong to the major unions that were on strike that day. Those branches of those unions didn't go on strike. There's actual Italian citizens inside the Zionist colony, part of the Leonardo Industries, which is the largest weapons manufacturer in Italy, that are actually building weapons inside Israel. Leonardo has weapons factories in Israel. What is these Italians doing if they truly want an end of the genocide in their name, genocide that's being committed with weapons produced in their country? What are they doing beyond going out on strikes or demonstrations? They need to go into those factories, shut them down. They need to bring their elite to justice. I mean, look, there was a very famous Italian chef. His name is Chef Rubio. I think he's the most famous Italian chef in modern history. He had like all these TV shows. One of them translated to 40 somewhat languages, running on Discovery Channel and other channels all around the world. And this man, Zionist thugs, made an ambush outside his mother's home, beat him almost to death. Okay? And neither the police went after these people that beat him almost to death, or the justice system. And in fact, the activists of Italy just abandoned him. You can imagine this? Okay, so let's say the justice system is not going to work. It's all controlled by the Zionists. Let's presume that. Or the police are controlled by the Zionists in Italy. Well, you're Italian. I know that you can do something more. I know that this is a mafia life. Why wasn't there any retaliation on the highest visible Jewish Italian media producer? Same thing. Put an ambush outside their mother's home. Do something. What's happening here? How can we, let this happen and pass as if there's nothing? Because now the Zionists think that they can kill an Italian in Gaza, which they did, Vittorio Arrigoni, martyr Vittorio Arrigoni, that was killed by the Israelis in 2009 inside Gaza. And also, they think they can kill an Italian citizens inside Italy, and neither the Italian government or the Italian people will care to retaliate. Okay, so these are the limits, unfortunately. And if I am the fascist Meloni, the president, I wouldn't care about what my people think if they're all wimps like that. If I can do whatever I want to, they can go out in the street, have a demonstration, and then go back to the factory and produce me weapons. Why would I care as the prime minister or the president of Italy about the opinions of my population?
The case of Germany is even worse. The new chancellor of Germany, he says that they want to support Israel as long as it takes. What is your understanding of what's going on in Germany? They have, it seems that every time there is a genocide, they're part of it. And who's the enemy of Germany in the Middle East that they feel this way against, the Palestinian people?
Yeah, look, of course, every time I watch how the police in Germany deal with the demonstrators, I'm like, the Israelis don't need to send thugs as they did in Italy to beat up Chef Rubio. By the way, those were actual Israeli thugs that got on a plane from Tel Aviv, landed in Rome, beat him up, and went back. The Israelis don't need to do that in Germany. The German police are beating children to pulp every day. I watch these videos and I'm like, oh my God, these are, literal thugs. The way they are treating these demonstrators and the women and children in these demonstrations. So it is a fascist country. Germany is fully Nazi right now in terms of the government. Of course, the people are against. Again, we read all these surveys, but again, the population is not doing anything. It's worse than during the Holocaust, during Nazi rule, because during Nazi rule, there was 70,000 Germans that carried arms against the Nazis. Where are those Germans to carry arms today against the fascists that are in control, the Zionist Nazis that are in control of the government? They're nowhere to be seen. So there's clearly I think a more safe fascist control in most European societies now than it was when Hitler was in existence. The other thing that I think most of our viewers don't realize is that Arabic peoples have been the first other to the Europeans. Since the first day a European stepped outside of Europe to the south of the Mediterranean or the east of the Mediterranean, we were the first other. And so, maybe people think white and black is the schism of racism. That maybe is true in the United States. But the schism of racism in European societies is Arab versus European. And most times when you see these European populations being surveyed saying they're against the genocide or they're for the Palestinian liberation, that stops at that. They don't want to see a unified Arabic people. They'd rather support the Kurdish Contras in Syria trying to build an ethnic segregationist apartheid state colony and ethnically cleanse the Assyrian, the Syrian Christians and Muslims from the northeast of Syria and go down and fight with arms. I mean, I met people in Italy like this. They went down to North Syria, carried arms under the flag of the CIA, on the side of the YPG, but they will not carry arms and go down to the front line in Palestine, because their limit is, in their mind, the Arab is a monster. Okay, the Arab is their ultimate, their first enemy. Okay, the Arabic peoples. Therefore, Palestine is set aside, away from Arabic unification and liberation. And the minute you say to these Europeans, but Palestine cannot exist if it's not unified with Lebanon and Syria, they're like, oh, you're an Arab nationalist. What are you talking about? But they're fine to be with Kurdish nationalists, even if they are ethnically cleansing and genociding millions of Armenians, Greeks, Assyrians, Arabs, Ashurians. It's fine. But Arabs coming together and having a unified Arabic state, oof, that's nationalism. So there's these limitations when we are dealing as Arabic peoples, as Muslim peoples, with Europeans. There's that limitation. They are fine with human rights for Palestine, but they're not fine with Arabic peoples being assertive and unified against European colonialism.